People are rolling in, and I don't know, do a little rambling before we get started. My name is Alex Burkett. I am the co-founder of Omniscient Digital, and you are here attending office hours. We do 2 events per month where we bring in experts like Magda here to teach hands-on workshops about all things associated with growth, demand generation, content marketing, SEO, and in this case, analytics. So that's a particularly interesting topic area for me. Spent a lot of my career in analytics and experimentation, which is when I met Magda. And I kind of blend those worlds with content marketing. And it's influenced a large amount of how we do content marketing at Omniscient. So let me ask y'all, and we have a poll here too. We would love to know if you've used GA before, if you have in the past, if you're currently using it, or if you haven't. I'll be totally honest, we have set it up, but I don't use it that often. I'm still hooked on the universal analytics interface, so I'm hoping to learn a lot about how I can shift over in the near future, as we'll need to. So as you're rolling in, if you could introduce yourself in the chat, maybe mention your name, title and company, where you're calling in from, and the fun question of the day: if you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be and why? Now, I think for myself, that's a hard question to answer, right? Because it kind of depends on like what time of your life. So if I'm answering for now, that's going to be different from 20 years from now. But I think if I could live anywhere for a year right now, I'd probably pick Paris, New York City. What else? Medellin, Colombia. That's what I would pick. What a perfect city.
Nice.
All right, let's get started. And I'm sure more people are going to roll in. So let me just introduce Magda here. Magda Baciu is the founder of Growth Savvy, a growth agency specializing in digital analytics, advertising, and conversion optimization. She's a big believer in cross-domain expertise, thus tapping into the power of data analytics and consumer psychology is the foundation of the processes they leverage to help clients grow. And today, of course, she's going to be talking about GA4 tactics that every content marketer should know. All right, take it away, Magda.
Thank you, Alex, for the thoughtful introduction, and hi, everyone. Before jumping in to the GA4 workshop, let me do this. 1 second. Can you see my screen? One second.
Can see.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I was just saying that before I jump into the GA4 topic, I love to also to answer your question, Alex, where in the world I will live. And I think even at the moment, I love, I just moved from UK to France, as you know. I love to explore maybe Italy or Spain, just because, it's such a nice environment. It has access to nature, and also it has good weather, which I really appreciate after living for a couple of years in London. But anyways, that's me. This is not really the first thought I have in mind when thinking of the next steps, because I just moved from UK to France, but who knows in the future. Yeah, cool. So let's get this started. Thank you for the introduction, Alex, once again. I'm very excited to have you all here and be part of the Office Hours series led by the Omniscient team. So I'm trying to also keep an eye on the chat. Hopefully you can hear me well. Just difficult to see if there's gonna be any problems with the connections, but I know that everything goes well. So anyways, I had fun building this workshop, and I hope you also, you're going to enjoy it and learn a lot from it. During the next 30 minutes or so, we are going to go through GA4 tactics that are going to help you build and come up with content ideas really fast. I know the content is extremely time consuming, so if we invest the time, we love to do it right. And by doing right, I mean understanding what the readers want to hear from us, what are their desires, expectations, and needs. And, you know, looking back when I started to work with GA, that was around 2014, 2015, I do remember that once I was getting into GA, then it was very difficult to stay laser focused and come up with practical and actionable insights very fast. That's because once you get into GA4, there's so many questions you can answer, but without knowing where to look, you might get out with 20 more questions to answer. So that's why I want to guide you through, because I had my fair bit of experience with analyzers and solving different struggles. So I love to give you a bit of clarity on that. When I was thinking about the most practical, interesting insights I ever got from GA, from Google Analytics, to build up the content strategy for us or for our clients, then the most interesting GA features that come to my mind are, as you see here, content groupings, custom dimensions, the keywords people look before they end on your website or when they're on your blog, and targeted surveys, which is a very interesting one, because it's not necessary you are going to see data in GA4, but GA4 is going to help these targeted surveys work. I'm going to walk you through that at the end. Cool. Before we jump into our tactics, obviously some people are joining us from Europe, which is where it's evening, and I'm sure that there are different people and beings that might ask for your attention. So feel free to invite them and send us pictures with you all. Cool. So the first one I love to chat and go through is content groupings, because I don't know about you, but once you start posting consistently articles in your blog, then you can easily are gonna have tens, hundreds, or thousands of articles. And if you go straight ahead in GA4 and look at hundreds of articles like you see in here, it's not going to help you get actionable insights. It's going to be overwhelming, struggling with where to look and what to focus on. But also it doesn't give you strategic insights because it's just too granular to start with. So what I love doing, and what we also do for us at Grow Savvy, is looking at the content grouping first. So we build content groupings to look at the overall blog results, but also we build groupings for each topic we write about, for each blog category we have on our website, because this just feels more aligned with the way we think and with how we plan our content going forward. And once you implement the content groupings, this is how they look like in GA4. You can see here that we have multiple content groupings for other parts of the website as well, but mostly we're going to focus today on the blog part. And just by looking at these first 4 rows, it's very easy for you to understand that, even if data analytics articles don't get the most of the traffic when comparing with the CRO articles, for example, they do get in and contribute with more than 50% of the leads the blog generates. So that's quite interesting to know, because it's not always about how much traffic you get, but also how well it performs for your business, and how, to what extent people love those articles and the content upgrades and so on. And only after that, I add page path as a secondary dimension, and I look at performance article by article, but still trying to stay in the same content grouping and analyzing it by content groupings. Just because in this way you can immediately understand what are the articles that perform the best and what's the topic they are about. So in here you can also see that all of a sudden, the articles that steal the show are only 3, and it's easier to dig into and understand why are these articles so special that they bring in more than 40% of all articles, all leads generated by the blog. And this is easier to understand. You go through the articles, you understand the approach that works, and also you analyze, the content groupings and any other things you have integrated on your blog. And looking at this, you are not going to find it by default in GA4. You have to set it up. You are going to get this slide. So in here, you'll find the link where Google is going to guide you step by step through the implementation. And once that's implemented, you are going to find the content groupings by accessing reports, engagement reports, and then pages and screens. So that's all when we talk about content groupings. And just to emphasize, this is a very interesting way to analyze content performance top down in a more strategic way, but also it saves you a lot of time when you have to analyze the performance of your content. Imagine that you would have 1,000 or 100 articles, each about different topics, and you want to group them. Well, to do that, you have to invest quite a few hours, even days, to group them by segments. So you could look at them the way you look through the content groupings, and I don't recommend that. Once you implement the content groupings, you are just going to have it forever, and it's a matter of clicks to understand level by level how your blog performs. Cool. Oh, and I also wanted to show you in here that you can actually look at these content groupings not only by article, but you could look at it by country, by city, by device, or any other dimension you have in GA4. And as you wish, and it also depends on the question you want to ask. But this is how you add a custom dimension. Actually, not a custom dimension. You can add as a secondary dimension a default or a custom dimension, doesn't matter. Cool. Let's go to the next one now. And this GA4 feature is very dear to my heart because you're going to see it so much more you can understand about your readers if you have these custom dimensions in place. And for content purposes, for the purpose of improving the performance of your content, it's actually very easy to get to know your readers better, to understand what's their company role, what's the next skill they want to work on, and so on and so forth. And in here, I wanted to emphasize that custom dimensions are just like default dimension you see in GA4, like city, country, device. Just you build yourself. That's the only dimension, but once you start to work with them, there's no difference in terms of how you work with them in reports. And just to give you an example of what you could store in a custom dimension, let's say that you have a content upgrade where people can download the specific resource from your blog. And you should ask for the name and email, that's the basic information, but you can also ask for their company role. Now, that's a very interesting variable to track and to have that stored in GA4. Obviously, I want to make sure that you know it's not allowed for you to track in a custom dimension their name or email address, because that's PII, it's personal information you are not allowed legally to track, but you can track the company role. And once you do that, you can go in GA4 and analyze the content group, a specific blog subcategory by the by the reader's role they have on a daily basis, which is very interesting, right? Because once you understand what's their daily struggles they go through as a specialist, and once you also know what are the articles they are interested in, it's way easier to build something that's really, engaging and interesting and valuable for them. So that's one way you can go about. But obviously, you can also ask about the skills they want to work on next, which is adds more info and knowledge about your reader. So you can, again, build something that's more personalized for them. Now, before going ahead, I'd love to mention that this is just a few examples that fit our agency and the way we look at data, but this can be easily adapted for any industry, business model, and any stage of your business. You just have to understand like what's important for you to know about your readers, so you can create value for them. Okay, so about custom dimensions, while there's a custom in it, obviously we need to customly implement it. It's not in GA4 by default, and you're going to find a link to Google articles on how you can do that. And once you have that tracked, you can play with these custom dimensions in most reports you have default in GA4 or custom reports as well. Cool. So far we went through and chatted about content groupings, which is so important to efficiently analyze content performance fast and come up with ideas. But we also chatted about custom dimensions, which are more about finding answers you could not find without having these variables in GA4. Now we're going to go through two different data tactics that are quite similar, but they complement each other. And the next one I want to look at is the website, the blog search box in our situation. Because once you understand what people type in your search box, you kind of find the content gap as well, right? If there's a topic they search for on your blog heavily and you haven't written about it, obviously you might want to consider to include that in your content strategy. And this is how this shows up in GA4. There's one click to take care of to implement this. And once you do that, you are going to see this report coming up in GA4. So talking about the click you have to take care of is just you have to enable the enhanced measurement feature once you set up your GA4 account. And that's going to be all you have to do, most of the cases. And then you're going to see the data if you go to reports, engagement, then next to events. And when you scroll down, you're going to see this table. You just have to type in that window search, click on view search results, and then you're going to see this nice search term report you see here on the right side. So that's all for this one. It's just a click in implementation, which is quite cool, I think, and you should not miss it for sure. No technical skills really required here. Cool. So the next one I wanted to walk you through, I told you it's really similar to the one I talked about on the blog, but it's a different stage in the funnel. These queries you can find in Search Console are happening before people land on your website. And this kind of report, the organic search query, it's used by SEO content specialists on a weekly basis. I'm not a SEO specialist, but there's so much to answer by looking at this report. One would be that obviously there's the qualitative data and the topics people search. The other is that you can easily see the topics and the keywords you're ranking the best, but also understanding like where you don't rank well enough, and you might work on building more content on that topic, or simply optimizing the Google snippet. That's also a piece of content that's gonna convince them to click on the article snippet and come to your blog. Cool. Search Console is again not a difficult one to implement. Search Console is a tool by itself, but it can be easily integrated with GA4. It only takes a couple of clicks, and once you do that, you go to reports, Search Console, and then queries, and you're going to see the report there. Cool. So far, we went through a couple of things. Hopefully, these were helpful, and you have a couple of things you want to discover and explore in your own GA4 or GA Universal if you haven't transitioned yet to GA4, because some of this are also available in the previous version of Google Analytics. But obviously, if you don't have this setup in there in the old account, it doesn't make sense for you to go there and implement them. Rather, start transitioning to GA4 and implement them right away in there. Just you have access to it long term. Cool. Then the targeted surveys. This is an interesting one. Not many people use this tactic, but because you might be thinking, well, Magda, there are not many, readers who download something from my blog or come from organic channel, and also not too many that search in my search box and blog. So I do understand that, because only 30%, or it depends on the website, but only a smaller percent of people fill in some information about them or search on the blog. So that being said, I want you to also find interesting insights and get to know your readers better, even if they didn't interact with you in a way that you would have wished before. So we have, let's say, 70% of your visitors, of your blog visitors, never downloaded something, so you can track too many information about them, like custom dimensions, for example. But what you can do is to use GA4 Wisdom and push it to other tools like Hotjar and build targeted surveys. You might think, again, what does this have to do with GA4? The responses are not going to show up in GA4, but I thought this is a really interesting perspective to have in mind. Because in the end, you might want to only learn more about your readers that are new to the website and they're interested in, let's say, data articles, right? So you can specifically show to them a survey and ask them, like, what's the questions they're looking for to answer. But it's not only the case that you can only show these surveys to new or returning. You could show to any kind of audience. You could show to traffic coming from a specific country. You could show to, you can show it on mobile or to readers that scrolled 40% of your articles, for example. You can build any kind of audience and then use that to feed Hojar, which is a survey tool, and not only, to really understand more about these readers. What can you build for them? That's so interesting that they want to interact with you, they want to use your templates, and they want to just use your wisdom way more than before. For that, you can set up the integration between GA4 and Hojar through Hardcode. But what I'm going to recommend you is to use Google Tag Manager, which is a tool very much used to implement GA4 the right way. And we build a custom template, so you don't have to mind about any technical details. Once you go to this article, you can download that template. And within 30 minutes, you can just use it straight ahead and trigger these surveys in Hojar. If you want to build it from scratch, it's going to take about 15 hours of coding, which is not something we want to do, right? If you can do it within 30 minutes. Good. So that was all that I had in mind. And just before we jump to the Q&A session, I would love to mention a few words about Grow Savvy. I founded Grow Savvy somewhere in spring 2016, and since then we've been helping companies grow through conversion optimization, advertising, and data analytics services. Many times we mix these topics and we help these areas support each other, which is very interesting to me. Well, that was all. If you have any questions after this Q&A, any questions popping through your mind, you can write me on LinkedIn or email. Okay,
Magda,
that was
awesome.
all. Thank you
so much. So like the first time I ever logged on to Google Analytics, it was many years ago, but I remember seeing like all these different reports and options and thinking, like, where do I even start? So I feel like you've given really like tactical, concrete examples, especially for content marketers. And the Hotjar one was mind blowing because that's a way that you can kind of like, like the qualitative insights and the quantitative and mix those together, which is like where the real fruitful insights come from. So just to step back, a question that I had, we've got the shift coming to GA4, I think in 2023 in the summer. Essentially, universal analytics is going to be deprecated and everybody's going to move to GA4. So I think there's been a lot of hesitancy, maybe on the marketing side. I know a lot of analysts love GA4 because it's an event-based model. But when somebody logs into GA4 for the first time, having used universal analytics, maybe beginner to mid-level, maybe not an analyst, but they know how to work it and get page view reports and conversion rates and stuff. What is going to be the biggest change or the biggest thing that's going to be jarring for them? Like between the two systems, what is the biggest difference people are going to notice?
There are plenty, but I think the most noticeable one is going to be that there are not too many default reports. Mostly, you have to build them from scratch. So they have a couple of default reports, but then you have to access the Explore tab in GA4 and take metric by metric and build the way you want it. GA4 is way, way more flexible and more adaptable. So that's the cool thing. But then there are many things you have to look into and kind of build it as you go. So I think this is the one. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding, just an example there, is that like with universal analytics, you could set up funnels, but they had to be predicated on a goal, and it could only be the preceding pages. Whereas in, say, GA4, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can set up funnels for any set of pages. So it's like you can set up custom funnels anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the big improvements. Now you don't only have like the basic visuals for funnels, but you have so many like time series funnels. You can decide what are going to be the interactions in the funnel. So for example, I say that you want to understand what were the interactions before they downloaded the content, right? Like what they interacted with on the blog before. And you can set that and look backwards. So that's very interesting, and it's a very complex funneling feature GA4 has, which GA3 didn't really have funnel capabilities really to especially like have like default visuals for your funnels.
If somebody's starting out on GA4, like let's throw a ballpark out there. How long is it going to take them to get used to the platform? Like if they're playing around with it, maybe taking a course or something like that, like, is this something you can get used to right away? Is this something that's going to take half a year, or like what's the learning curve?
It really depends if you worked with GA before, and if you are comfortable with analyzing the data and looking through reports. But let's say if you have never worked with GA4 with GA Google Analytics before, you will need like a couple of months to feel really familiar and comfortable with it. If you used it before, probably just a couple of weeks to explore and work with it.
Do you personally, as an analyst, like GA4 better, or are there still some frustrations about the platform in comparison to the old analytics?
There are a couple of frustrating things with GA4 because they have not released fully all the features. So there are some features that miss from GA4, like building custom channels, for example. They're going to launch that in the next couple of months, but it's not about GA4 itself. It's just because they didn't fully deploy all the data features they want to deploy in the next months. I do love it more, and it's more exciting because you can pick your data attribution model. You can change it anytime. It's gonna deploy retroactively across all your data. So it's so much more fun to work with GA4. Just it's gonna be even better, next year springtime, I think. But still, it's important to adapt and start using GA4 and start getting data on GA4 as soon as possible, because you want to have year-over-year comparison. You want to have quarter-over-quarter comparison. And if you don't start early to track data on GA4, then when the moment is going to come, it's difficult to compare GA4 data with GA3. That's going to be such a mess and a hard, difficult thing to do, because the data tracking model in GA4, it's really different. Like, you don't have goals anymore. You have events and conversions, and you don't have views anymore. You have data streams. So many things you can't compare. When you look at GA4 versus GA3, you can't compare apples to apples. Really, it's a bit different data approach. So to compare apples to apples, it's important to get GA4 running as soon as possible.
Cool. And then we have a couple questions. I think they're all on content groupings. So let's return back to the initial theme. From Alex Diaz on our team at Omniscient, what are some creative ways to use the content grouping feature when visualizing content performance? It seems like a great place to visualize the buyer journey or funnel with your content. So you gave the example of topic themes, but like, could it be used in other ways for, top of funnel, mid funnel, all of that stuff, or to visualize different sort of dimensions by which you would classify content?
Yeah, for sure. You can use content groupings as a step in a funnel you build, so you can visualize that when looking at the funnels. But you can also, look at content groupings by any other variable or dimension you have in GA4. Like, I think I mentioned, it could be like you can look at content groupings by company size or country they're coming from, age, gender, specialization. Like, you can do anything you want with it. Content grouping itself, it's kind of like a custom dimension. So content groupings, it's not really called a custom dimension, but it behaves like one. So it's very flexible the way you can work with it.
And a follow-up, which is my question, is can you collate multiple different kind of content groupings or custom dimensions? So in your example, it could be like topic and theme at the highest level. Say we've got analytics, content articles, and CRO articles. And then maybe there's funnel stages like problem aware, solution aware, et cetera. And then maybe it's like format. Maybe you've got like SEO listicles, product marketing release launches, thought leadership. And then could you view all of those in the same chart where you're looking at like analytics articles that are bottom funnel and product marketing related and on and on?
Yeah, you can do that. You have to build custom reports for that. When you go so in depth and granular, you mostly have to work with custom reports, and you can mix that kind of strategy.
Yeah, it feels like it could get pretty convoluted from a setup
Yeah, yeah. But also, like, you have to start simple before you go so in depth, so you can easily build up on that, and it's, we don't get out from GA with 30 questions. Like, I'm a perfectionist, so that was my problem at the very beginning. Like, I wanted to answer all the questions within the first day, and I was finding more and more questions, and that was crazy.
Well, how reversible are these things that you set up? Say you set those 3 different sort of content groupings or dimensions up, and you're like, actually, no, the funnel stage one is stupid. Like, we don't need to know if it's top of funnel, or like maybe our categorization was wrong. Like, can we reverse that decision in our analytics?
You can't, you can adapt it, and from that point on, track it differently and group pages differently, but it's not going to apply retroactively in this situation.
So you want to do some planning up front.
Yeah, and some planning, but also as the situations of the business changes, because you add more pages and things are going to change, right? As you grow, just keep in mind that you have to update these data tracking setups.
And then how do you turn on content groupings?
Well, there are 3 different ways you can do it. It really depends. If you have a really well-structured URL infrastructure architecture, then you can simply implement content groupings based on how your URL is structured. But if that's not possible, you have to do it in a more technical way. And you have to build some data layers, copy and paste in the backend of the website, and based on that, you feed data to content groupings. So it can be less technical or more technical, depending on how the website is structured and how the URL is structured. For example, let's say that all your data articles, they do have a part in the URL that's common, data articles, and then before that becomes the title of the article. If you have like a common piece of URL between all the data articles, you can straight ahead go and say, hey, please bring all the articles that have this part, this common part, on the data articles content grouping. So you can do that if that's how your website is structured. If not, you need to put a piece of code on each data article, and based on that, the content group is going to know, oh, this is an article about data. Let's put it in a content grouping about data. So, a few types of implementations in here. But once they go through the Google article, they are going to see like which one is going to be better for them.
Cool. With the risk of getting a little technical, I just want to replay that so I understand. So like the URL structure seems to be the easiest. You could have like -blog, -data, -article title. And then if you're not going to do that, say you wanted to like pull in like the author name, like you would have to listen for that. You would have to pick that element on the page, set up something in the data layer and actually like extract that. Same thing if it's like you have WordPress categories or something like that. Like you could pull those, but it would require a little extra setup.
Exactly. So the implementation based on URLs is simpler, but also you need to make sure that you're gonna keep with having URLs the same way, consistent. Mm-hmm. The more reliable way, it's having data layers on the website, having a piece of code on each data article you build from there on. And that generally, when we work with our clients and implement GA4, we implement everything through data layers and as technical as possible, so it's extremely solid. But if you don't have that team and resources, I think it's fine to also go and go less technical, I think, just to get the job done and to get it started.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And then we've got another one here, which is, will GA4 replace the need to have some GTM tags?
Good question. Well, not really. GTM, Google Tag Manager, is going to be more and more needed, especially for GA4, because once this, there are many cookies policies and laws coming in, and we're going to have to use Google Tag Manager for server-side tracking and cookies-based tracking. So we're going to need Google Tag Manager more and more, for GA4 included.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I think we've got all the questions answered here. So just on my side, we've got a couple links in the chat. There's a survey we're planning for a large event next spring. We've got Magda's company link in the chat if you want to check out Growth Savvy. And oh yeah, we're doing another office hours on November 22nd. We're going to do, the topic is going to be how to sell through content. Let me check real quick. How to sell through content without being salesy. This is on product-led content, a topic near and dear to my heart. Dr. Fio Dosetto is going to be delivering that one. So look for that. We've got the page. I think Carissa's going to drop it. We do have it. Thank you, Carissa. And thank you so much, Magda. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, Alex. Happy to be here and happy to be part of office hours. Thank you guys for being here, and hope this was fun for you.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.